We are now live. Okay, so good evening, councillors, and welcome to this evening's extraordinary council meeting. It is an extraordinary council meeting because both items on our agenda tonight are time critical and the water hygiene item carries considerable risk. So before we start our agenda, I've had some words of reflection. So let us pause before the meeting. June, a time to fly the rainbow flag with pride, to celebrate our LGBTQ plus friends and family, and stand with those who feel marginalised and even fearful. 22nd of June is Windrush Day, when we can recognise the positive impact of immigration and remember the sacrifice and service of those who came here from the Caribbean. June, a time of town and village fairs in Waverley, which include Godalming Town and Milford Village, and those coming up in Farnham and Cranley. Times of happiness and of togetherness. June, with its beautiful weather, though our dry gardens and road verges show us the effect of climate change. So let us live more simply, so that others may simply live. And we have an announcement as well, Susan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to advise Council that I've recently used my delegated authority at paragraph 2.4.5 of the Officer Scheme of Delegations, which provides that I may make changes to the membership of any of the Council's committees as necessary during the Council year in accordance with the wishes of the respective group leaders. I have appointed Councillor Gale to the independent seat on the Audit and Risk Committee, Councillor Munro to the independent seat on the Licensing Committee, and Councillor Gale to the independent seat on the Overview and Scrutiny Resources Committee. The scheme of delegations provides me with the authority to make the appointments subject to any changes being reported to full council. So please take this announcement as the monitoring officer formally notifying council of the appointments, and I request that they be recorded in the minutes of the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. So members, please raise your hand if you wish to speak, and you'll be operating your own microphones. If you're unable to hear, please indicate. This meeting is live streamed now, and we'll be using the electronic voting system using the consoles in front of you. When a vote is called for, it will light up. For is on the left, abstain is in the middle, and against is on the right. Speeches will be timed at 4 minutes, other than in accordance with Council Procedure Rule 15.5. Content and length of speeches, and you will be given a 30-second warning before your time is up. Members may only speak once on each item, except in the circumstances as set out in Procedure Rule 15.6. If you are making a point of order, please be clear about which procedure rule or law you think has been breached and how, and wait for agreement before proceeding. Agenda item 1 is apologies for absence. Katie, are there any?
I've received apologies for absence from Councillor Lawton, Councillor MacLeod, Councillor Martin, Councillors Ruth and Ken Reid, Councillor Sullivan, Councillor Davidson, Councillor Mirrlees, Councillor White, Councillor Atkins, Councillor Wicks, Councillor Earwaker, Councillor Keane and Councillor Raleen. Are there any other apologies? Councillor Austin.
Can I pass on Councillor Staunton as well? Thank you.
Thank you. Any other apologies? I've got him on the list. Thank you. Any further apologies? Thank you.
Thank you. Agenda item 2, declarations of interest. Are there any? No. There are no questions from members of the public, and there are no questions by members. So we come to agenda item number 5, which is shared legal services and information governance functions between Waverley Borough Council and Guildford Borough Council. Before the motion is moved, are there any questions regarding clarity? No. So councillor Keel, may I ask you to speak?
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. I'm very pleased to introduce this paper and I believe I have a seconder.
Please second, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. So this paper recommends that Waverley Borough Council accepts a delegation for the discharge of Guildford Borough Council's legal services and information governance functions with effect from the 1st of July 2025, providing a joint service between Waverley and Guildford. I'm very pleased to see that where we have been able to bring forward proposals to collaborate, which make sense and which will give both financial and non-financial savings, we are doing so. The arena of support services for the council's functions is well placed for this, and so before us here is a proposal to bring together the legal services and information governance services functions. This will give the services greater resilience as there will be a larger group of officers available, which will make covering things like sickness and leave much easier and to allow for workloads to be better managed. As well as the staff savings, which are at least £50,000 per annum for Waverley Borough Council due to the reduction in senior level posts, there will also be savings to be made by having single contracts with providers of resources and case management and in reducing duplication. The report recommends that the functions be delegated from Guildford, who have already agreed that they wish to do this at their meeting of council on the 12th of May, to Waverley, creating a shared team under a single authority. All staff will be transferred across under 2P to the authority accepting the delegation, so that is to Waverley. In terms of both the collaboration's ability to deliver best value for our residents and looking forward more broadly towards local government reorganisation and what comes next, one thing is certain, we will need a well-resourced legal department. The whole council asks a lot of this function, and this proposal will ensure that the team has the resilience and flexibility to operate while also providing best value to our residents. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Follows, do you wish to speak now?
I shall reserve my right, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Austin.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I must say I'm concerned about this one because what is being proposed is a major restructure, and it is acknowledged in the papers that it will be disruptive and does carry with it some significant downside risks, as well as some upside. Waverley is the smaller employing authority with the smaller team. Surely the question must be asked, how is this a better deal for Waverley? As with other service areas, the concern is the work of one authority will command precedence over the other. Sharing legal services means changing the terms of work and contract for an entire team, and for Waverley to take on additional employment and TUPE risk. It is acknowledged that the way the two teams work and how they work and the culture are different. So is all of this upheaval just ahead of local government reorganisation worth it? Creating a joint function will, it is hoped, create a saving of £100,000 per annum. If we look at the joint budget for the two councils of 2.4 million per annum, we're therefore talking about a saving of 4%. I mean, this is marginal in financial terms at best, and for me, does not appear to be significant enough to justify the acknowledged upheaval. If we offset the potential upside versus the risks and disruption, I say again, is it worth doing? It is most likely the new structure for we're looking at a new structure for unitary legal department in the coming years, in the very near term, and the team will be very different again at that point. Therefore, I believe it would be prudent to make a decision in the autumn, once we know what unitary structure we'll be dealing with. A more informed decision at that point will help us align the department with the real future incoming legal department structure. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers? Councillor Goodridge.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I too am concerned about the risks and why expose Waverley to risks when we're so close to local government review. The one thing that I don't quite understand on savings is savings from single contracts. with providers of resources. Guildford and Waverley are two entities, so presumably if somebody is supplying services to Guildford and Waverley, you have to have a contract for each local authority. And so I don't understand why there should be one contract for two authorities together. But what I'm mainly concerned about is the start date, which is the 1st of July 2025, which is 10 working days away. The report states that after a decision is taken, we will then meet union partners in advance of consultation with staff. And so in 10 days, there's got to be consultation with the unions and consultation with the staff. And it begs the question as to whether this is going to be a true consultation or a whitewash. I must say, it worries me that the timescale is so short. And I see that from the papers that this was going to be before council in May. And I suppose if it had gone through council in May with some 6 weeks for consultation, it might have been reasonable. But 10 working days does seem to me to be rushing it through. And what if the staff do not support the changes as set out in paragraph 9.4 and all the risks there? It being acknowledged that there are cultural differences between both councils, different terms and conditions of employment, and it is hoped that transition will be managed smoothly. Hoped. I mean, some of the good things in the report is that staff will be able to learn from each other and so on and so forth, and that all presupposes, of course, that the legal team is going to work from an office rather than from home. And so all this sort of teamwork and everyone learning from each other is all very good, but not if you are not going to be in the office for a good period of time. The other thing I noticed, and perhaps I could be advised whether I've got it right or not, but under financial implications, paragraph 11.1, it refers to a budget of February 2024. Should that not be 2025? In other words, the budget we're in rather than the budget we finished. So I think it's being rushed unnecessarily. I think it would be better if it came into force once we knew what is going to happen with local government review, and also when we have perhaps done a bit of consultation beforehand, because the report makes it clear that none of this has happened yet. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hess.
Well, again, as with other things coming forward before this council, this is a big change, not that long before the chosen format of the unitary authority takes place, maybe 2 years' time, not very long. In the meantime, there's going to be a lot of work for the legal department, both at Waverley and I'm sure at Guildford, because of the requests for transfers of assets from parishes to Waverley for assets which the parishes would like to have. That will involve a lot of legal work. There'll be complications, won't necessarily be straightforward, which will take up very much the time of legal officers on top of their existing workload. And I do wonder whether this change and this merging of different cultures is a good thing to do at this particular time when their workload is going to increase quite dramatically. A 4% saving, as mentioned by Councillor Austin, doesn't sound like a particularly attractive or major saving. So I do wonder whether it would be better to defer this until later in the year when a clearer picture comes before us as to how the unitary setup is going to work. Again, we're pushing all this through just before all these unitary proposals come forward to us. I just don't see it as being a particularly good management idea. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Murray.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I also have to concur with my colleague, Councillor Hess. It does seem that until we know what LGR happens, but I can understand why the legal team and the council would like to do it. I read that it needs £1 million of administrative case back office support to spend £1 million to make this happen. Was that correct? You wanted to spend £1 million because that would save. Then you save £100,000 a year between the two councils, and that would take 10 years to get that £1 million back. So could you just clarify that? It says at the beginning that you needed to have you want to spend £1 million of extra for back office case administrative support. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers? Councillor Follows, would you like to speak to second?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I really do just urge also questions of clarity to be asked at the section entitled Questions for Clarity at the beginning. I'm not entirely sure what you're referring to there. I'm not sure if Victoria is, but we'll try and get to that between us, and if not, we'll respond outside of the meeting. I'll just try and go through some of the points that have been raised. Councillor Austin, the savings are up front to Waverley, and there are clearly foreseeable further other savings from the ancillary aspects, as Councillor Keel has mentioned. Councillor Goodridge, we can do joint procurement on those, which has already unlocked savings in other areas where we've been able to do that sort of thing, and we have no reason to suspect that we wouldn't be able to do so here under those joint procurement terms. Councillor Hess, actually, strangely, I actually agree with the first point that you made, but I would have come to exactly the opposite conclusion. One of the reasons that we need to do things like this is because we do believe that there is going to be a significant need for more legal capacity. And you, as well as I, know that some of the things that this council, particularly those of us in Godalming and Farnham and a few other places, want to do are things like land transfers. And to do that, we do need a legal team that is staffed up and tooled up to do the job. So I agree with you. I am really concerned about making sure that we have the capacity to do that. But actually, I'm taking the opposite conclusion that if we defer things like this, it makes that even harder for us to do. And it will limit the scope of what sort of activity we can do for even longer. The general point, though, that was made by several members that spoke was about whether we should wait for the unitary. The consultation on that unitary started today from the government for 7 weeks, and we obviously found out only definitively when it was going to start, well, on Monday, really. So that was useful. Every time we have a meeting with the state on this, in almost any capacity, the date that we find out that main question moves a little bit. And we're now up to mid to end of October before we hear that definitive answer. And that's assuming that as soon as Parliament get back from recess, they do this first and do this properly. That's something that I don't think is likely. We've already been discussing with the electoral services team about how on earth they're going to actually run the election process for May 2026 and how an RO who has to have personal liability in that process is going to act in a legal and proper way. We have 2 more years of Waverley, and I do believe that we have a duty to make sure that we spend public money wisely during that time. We try and save money where we can, and we also make ourselves, and I think via the collaboration as a vehicle, LGR ready, for lack of better words. We know full well that whichever unitary we're in is definitely going to include Surrey Heath, Woking and Guildford. We know that because the 2 options that have been put forward for the government consultation make that clear and make that definitive at this point. So really, we're now looking at whether that will include Elmbridge and Spelthorne and Runnymede or not, depending on which version of this you look at. So we kind of know about the structure of the unitary that's going to come. We can also surmise a lot of it by looking at how other unitaries work. We also can't do a lot about it because the unitary itself will determine how its legal service works. It will determine how many staff it has. One of the things that I'm quite keen on pursuing as part of the collaboration is that we make our staff be in the best possible position also to apply for those roles in that new unitary. And you can imagine here that a large proportion of staff who've worked at Guildford and Waverley will have had responsibilities for more than one council. They'll have had joint roles, they'll have had a wider responsibility than their peers in single boroughs. We are putting them in the best place for job security pretty much of any officers that exist in this county. I'm quite keen to do that. And one of the really excellent side benefits of that process is that we have a joint and more efficient legal team to do the work that many of us here know needs to be done over the next few months in the legal sphere. We have a lot of business that needs doing. So members, I urge you not to defer or seek other clarification on this. I think it's very clear, and I'm sure Victoria will cover the other points I've missed. My apologies, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Keele.
Thank you very much. Just to add to some of the points that Councillor Follows has made, we will need a resilient service to go ahead with LGR, and any saving is worth it to our residents. LGR, I believe, is still quite a long way off. We don't know if we will have any real clarity come October, so I don't believe that it's advisable that we wait and see. The saving is a minimum of 50,000 each to each council. It's expected to be higher, so it could be higher at Guildford, so it will be more than the 4%. It's not just about cost, it's about the ability to specialise, outsource less of our legal work, build our resilience, improve our service delivery, all of these kind of non-cashable things. The consultation has already started subject to council decision. It has been 30 days in line with our HR policies, so it's already started. It's in fact nearly finished. It will be finishing this week. And the consultation, as I said, has been subject to the council decision. Our apologies, paragraph 11.1 is a typo and should read February 2025. So just in summary, we're not spending anything, we are saving. I'm aware that we have already saved, for example, £5,000 this week on the negotiation of a contract thanks to the collaboration. We negotiated as Guildford and Waverley together and got ourselves a better deal. So I really do think that this is worth us doing, and I commend this to you. Thank you.
Thank you. So I shall read the recommendation that Council resolves to 2.1, accept the delegation for the discharge of Guildford Borough Council's legal services and information governance functions with effect from the 1st of July 2025. 2.2, note that the joint staffing structure for delivery of the legal services and information governance functions will consist of staff transferred from Guildford Borough Council on July the 1st, 2025, and Waverley Borough Council staff. 2.3, that authority is delegated to the Strategic Director of Democracy, Law and People in consultation with the chairs of the Joint Governance Committee to update the inter-authority agreement to include provisions that ensure all decisions in relation to any delegated functions are made by both Guildford Borough Council and Waverley Borough Council. When the lights show, please vote. So that's 25 for, 1 abstention and 7 against. That is carried. So we come to agenda item number 6, the HRA additional budget for water safety works. Are there any questions before we come to the motion? None. Councillor Paul Rivers, would you like to move the adoption of the motion, please?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I'm very pleased to do this, and I have a seconder in Councillor Follows.
Pleased to second, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. As I said,
One moment, Councillor Follows, are you going to reserve your right?
I will again reserve my right, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Councillor Rivers.
thank you. I am pleased to present this important report, which seeks approval for an additional capital and revenue budget to support a comprehensive programme of water hygiene works across our council homes. This initiative is a direct response to the findings of the Regulator of Social Housing's inspection, which happened at the end of last year. This inspection highlighted the need for a more proactive approach to water safety. Rather than managing the risk of Legionella, we are now taking decisive steps to eliminate it altogether. The proposed works will convert properties to direct mains water supply and remove the cold water storage tanks, which is the primary source of Legionella risk. So this approach not only enhances the safety and well-being of our tenants, but also reduces the need for ongoing maintenance and monitoring, which would otherwise be required in our current approach. It is a forward-thinking investment in both health and efficiency, and this programme of works will be completed by the end of next year, by the end of 2026. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Are there any speakers? Councillor Gale, followed by Councillor Good.
Just a query really, Madam Mayor. If we are connecting the homes to mains water supply, how will this affect the heating boilers and things? Because we have been replacing like-for-like boilers in some of our properties, which actually do have the reserve tanks in the lofts and things like that. Does this mean we've got to go back over the work and replace other boilers with combi boilers or such?
Thank you. Councillor Rivers, your microphone is on. I don't think you wanted to be. Councillor Goodridge.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll be supporting this, but why the delay? Because in Bramley, we had an outbreak of Legionella's disease or bacteria at London Court about 3 years ago, which must have put alarm bells around the housing department as to whether this could be happen elsewhere. And it's taken at least, I mean, I think it was certainly in prior to the last election that happened. And it seems to me that it's taken a long time to have brought this to the council. I think it is urgent that it's done, and I will support this. But I'm surprised that this wasn't on the agenda some years ago. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Hess.
I think it's a very good initiative to take. The figure quoted here is coming up towards the £1 million mark or slightly over. For the actual contracting for the works, will it be going to competitive tender? Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers? Councillor Follows.
I'll have to check a couple of bits in a minute just to be absolutely sure, but just to cover the bits that I can definitely say so. It is clear, I think, in the recommendation what's happening here in terms of the contracting out 2.4. So what contractors will need and how the procurement stage will work. So that's covered in section 2.4. One of the reasons, I mean, I dispute that it's taken so long. I mean, doing things through local government processes are often not ideal in terms of speed, but there are things we have to go through. We've been discussing with the Regulator of Social Housing about how we actually go about doing this. It's not a small task what we're proposing to do here as well. For those of us that have to do health and safety in various day job hats, you have a little acronym, ERIC PD, Eliminate, Reduce, Isolate, Control, PPE and Discipline. And the first one, it's a hierarchy, you do it in order. The first one is eliminate. So if you are able to eliminate the risk, it is usually the preferred course of action. In the case of the management of Legionella under the LA ACOP regulations, it has been the practice across most industry and social properties to reduce where possible. It has become more commonplace now to seek to eliminate in the way that we're trying to do here. But it is not a small job to do that in a social housing context. So it's not something that can be rushed, but it is something that is necessary. You can't completely eliminate almost any type of risk, and you certainly can't in this. My understanding for in terms of Maxine Gale's question is that would be the case, but you could still do that. There's obviously a connection to the outside mains. It still has, there's obviously risk. You can't completely eliminate it because it's attached to something with pipe work basically to an outside system. This is just trying to reduce the risk. We can, the exec asked for pretty much chapter and verse on that question. I'll make sure you get that response back afterwards so it's a bit clearer than how I've just delivered it to you. I very much support this. It's obviously very much in the interest of our residents. We've managed Legionella well in this authority over the last, well, certainly ever. I've not ever seen it not managed well. This will just make it more likely that we will eliminate the risk completely in most cases, rather than just reduce and manage it. So it's usually the better option. At that point, Madam Mayor, I'll hand back to Councillor Rivers. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, we should have done this years ago. I absolutely agree. I think the reasons for not doing it is because we'd always done it the way we had always done it. And it was the benefit of the inspection with the regulator of social housing that made us step back and look at it. I mean, by removing the cold water storage tanks from the lofts, we eliminate the need for inspections going forwards. And we eliminate the need to board some of these loft spaces and put electric lights in there so that we can do it. This is a much more sensible way forward. Yes, we should have done it years ago, but hey, we didn't think of it until it was pointed out to us. So I really recommend that we all swing in favour of these recommendations. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. So I shall read the recommendation. The Council resolves to approve 2.1, a capital budget of £845,000 to procure Legionella and water hygiene remedial works identified through risk assessments to be funded from the HRA Working Balance Reserve. 2.2, a revenue budget of £162,000 to ensure all flat blocks are risk assessed, with 10% of both houses and bungalows added to our portfolio each year, to be funded from the HRA Working Balance Reserve. 2.3, to commence procurement to select appropriate contractors for the increased capital and revenue budgets, in addition to the water hygiene services procurement as approved by the Executive on the 1st of April this year. 2.4, the total contract value of 1.7 million and 1.07 million, anticipated term 60 months, subject to final strategic sourcing option. It is anticipated that A, the procurement will seek to award contracts based on 2 separate lots to 2 contractors who will provide services for risk assessment and remedial works respectively. And B, the procurement will be subject to further competition via a framework agreement. 2.5, that any consequent contract award shall be subject to executive approval as a key decision. When your lights show, please vote. So that is unanimously carried, and at 7:37 we end the meeting.